Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining. As a brief introduction, I'm Theo. I may well have spoken to a number of you before. I sit on our strategic accounts team and cover all of our products right across our whole ecosystem. Couple of kind of housekeeping rules. You should all be kind of muted as a default. If you do have any questions, please do feel free to pop them in the chat or the questions box at the top of the screen. One of my colleagues, Jacob, will be periodically answering those as we go. And I'll also make sure to leave lots of questions for kind of a Q&A at the end. Today's session is going to be a little bit different to some of the other demo days in that it's not necessarily going to be an introduction to analytics or to cash calc. It's going to be a little bit more kind of a thought leadership piece in a way, and kind of explaining how you could use our tools to demonstrate the value of time in the market, and also to kind of reassure your clients, depending on what their objectives and goals might be. Maybe they're slightly kind of worried about recent market events. Maybe they're concerned about something a bit more bespoke to them, i.e., not having enough money to leave to their dependents. Whatever it might be for your clients' goals, that is what we are trying to facilitate you guys being able to achieve using our tools. Cool. So as a kind of a brief agenda, again, I might go a little bit off piste as we go, and please do feel free to ask any questions, and I can try and cover some of those as we go. But really, it's about when things go wrong, how can you reassure your client? So a very common example we had was the COVID crash recently. A lot of people were seeing the market volatility and potentially thinking that they'd be better off leaving their money as cash or potentially not investing at all. FE Analytics is a very powerful tool you could use to demonstrate the value of investing. Also, the value of compound interest could be showed very nicely on analytics, and also things like not panic selling and reapplying and that sort of thing. So there's loads of things you could do on FE Analytics in there, including as the third agenda point says there, the value of investing at the start of the tax year versus regular contributions because of that compounding of interest. So it's a really good way of kind of bringing a story to life that you're trying to communicate with your clients. Cash calc is a little bit more kind of forward looking. So that would be designed to when you have got these kind of back tested scenarios done on analytics, how can you make that more relatable to your clients' goals and objectives that you may well have picked up using our fact finds and our onboarding. So again, that's a more powerful way of showing that despite there might be market crashes in the future, or you might have a period of turbulence, because of the strategy that I have put in place for you, Mr. and Mrs. Client, you can see that your cash flow is still going to be healthy and it's still going to be good enough to kind of fulfill your needs and your goals that you might have discussed with them. And then, so that's the first bit. So I'm going to touch upon FE Analytics. I'm then going to touch a little bit on FE Cash Calc and how you can kind of bring that more to life. And then the third point is our onboarding portal and our kind of client portal and fact finding things. As I mentioned at the front end, that should be a fantastic way of kind of getting all of that information on your clients as a starting point, to start understanding their goals and objectives in a little bit more detail. But then also what I'm going to go through is how you can mass communicate to all of your clients should you want to. So some of the reports I might generate on analytics might not be client specific. It might just be showing the value of investing in one of your models as part of your central investment proposition versus leaving it as cash, versus putting it in a kind of a fixed interest account. And maybe that's the sort of thing that you would want to mass communicate to all of your clients, just as a reminder as to why they should be invested in the first place. And then, of course, a Q&A at the end. Cool. Before I kind of jump into the actual functionality of the tools themselves, I thought I would start by giving a bit of an overview of our Nexus offering and what we are trying to achieve. So really, we do serve the kind of the full marketplace. We've got over 1,000 fund managers, 100% of the top 10 and 60% of the top 100 asset managers by AUM globally trust us. So we are that golden source of data. We have all of that information, and that is what we're able to capitalize with FE Analytics. And we directly connect to the largest network of kind of 300 different data vendors, as you can see here, 4,200 IFAs, 60 life and pensions, 30 platforms. So we've got a really good market coverage, and this allows us to be in a fairly unique position, really, to have that data and then allow it to flow right the way through your ecosystem. What Nexus is, essentially, it is designed to connect the two kind of worlds, if you like. You've got all of the asset management relationships and kind of all of that information data gathering that we've got on the left hand side. We collect and verify that data and then allow you guys, the advisors, to benefit from that in kind of three main ways. So the first is that onboarding and engagement piece. through the cash calc fact find and portal that again I'll touch upon at the end. The planning and research part, which is FE analytics, which is our kind of bread and butter to a degree. I think 85% of financial advisors who do use any kind of fund research tool do use analytics, and 90% of the top 100. So it's a very popular kind of tool amongst financial advisors. And then Cash Calc is our cash flow planning tool, as well as that onboarding piece. And that is where we really bring that story to life and make it much more of a holistic financial planning piece, as opposed to a fairly generic research on a portfolio. So that's where you would align it to your client's goals and needs. Cool. So as I mentioned there, the only other part of our kind of ecosystem that I didn't touch upon there was Advisor Asset. This is who we acquired at the start of the year. It's a platform switching and comparison tool, which is really that kind of last step in the journey. So if you think about it as a kind of a conveyor belt, we believe that we sit perfectly between your back office system and your platforms, all wrapped around your central investment proposition. The data will flow the whole way through, and you'll be able to do whatever research you would need to do as an advisor, ultimately as quickly as possible, to allow you guys to have as much time as possible to spend with your clients going through what we are going to go through today, i.e. reassuring your clients at times of kind of market uncertainty, or making sure that their goals are fulfilled. And the important point about this as well is that MI data will flow the right way through. So if you are part of a larger network or larger group, it's a great way to make sure that every advisor is doing a kind of a uniform approach, and all the clients are getting a similar level of service. Everything is completely consumer duty friendly and compliant. We are very aware of things like the kind of thematic review and other things on the cash flow side of things. So we are always making sure that our tools are able to help you meet your consumer duty needs as well as possible. Cool. So in practice, as I kind of just as a quick kind of recap before I jump onto the tools, we have got the onboarding through our Cash Calc client portal. This is where I will show how you would send mass communications out to all of your clients, reassuring them of any kind of market turbulence or events that are happening in the market at the moment. And it is also where your clients would fill in all of that fact find information, including all their soft facts like the objectives and things like that, which is a really kind of powerful way of you guys making sure that you have that intelligence to make the cash flows and other parts of that cash flow planning process as bespoke to your client as possible, as opposed to just a kind of generic, this is how your portfolio has performed. We have then got the ability to demonstrate that on the cash flow, as I said, through the financial planning, and also that new advice and client approval piece through analytics, doing those side-by-side comparisons of you're currently invested in X, this is what I'm proposing in Y. And then the final step of that is using Advisor Asset to do that platform due diligence as well, to say that we have decided that this is the most appropriate portfolio for you. We have got your goals and objectives locked down, and we have demonstrated that on a cash flow. But we now also want to say what is the most appropriate platform for you as well, to really kind of join those dots and complete that circle. So in practice, really, it's a move away from a kind of a best of breed approach where you might have 5 or 6 different tech partners, and it's really just to create a much more streamlined process. And we do have other sessions similar to this where we will be going through that process in a bit more of a step-by-step way. So please do reach out if you want to be interested in that. Today's session is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to be jumping between the tools a little bit more, but there is also a very streamlined, centralized approach that you can just make repeatable again and again, depending on the client's needs. And I think I will leave this presentation for now, and I will jump onto the demo. Just before I do jump on straight away, has anyone got any kind of immediate questions on Nexus in the chat, or are we good to move on? Cool, Brian. Yeah, I've seen you've asked for a copy of the slides. Yeah, absolutely. We can make sure that our team sends around that kind of Nexus for IFA presentation. Absolutely, yeah, definitely. Cool. So I'm beginning on FE Analytics. I imagine a lot of you are familiar with this tool, but this is really our kind of portfolio comparison fund research tool that 85% of the market base uses. Not only is it a kind of powerful research tool, but it could also be used to kind of create some fairly powerful visuals to back up client advice and client messaging around that topic that we kind of chose today of reassuring your clients why they should be spending time in the market and not kind of panic selling any of their money or anything like that. And there's a couple of charts that I like as a as a starting point, I think are really powerful to do this. The first is the performance line chart, which is one of the most popular charts on FE Analytics. And what I'm going to show you guys first is just how you demonstrate the value of investing in the first place. So as I said, I have it with my mates all the time. They will read in the papers that markets are bad. They think they get a 3% guaranteed return on their bank account. Why not just stick it in that savings account? Or even worse, why not just leave it as cash? Obviously, we all know that that is the inflationary risk behind it, but sometimes that is slightly hard to explain or articulate to clients, and we could easily create some powerful visuals to show you how you would do that. So in terms of formatting the right-hand side, everything on analytics is a kind of works on an input left-hand side, output right. So I'm going to configure the output first before I'm going to decide what I am running this chart on. So in this specific chart, I'm running it for 10 years, and I want an index lump sum measurement instead of percentage change, and I'm going to set this to 10,000, i.e. it's what would happen if you invested £10,000 10 years ago. I'm now going to set this relative moving average to relative and then leave it for there. And essentially what that allows you to do is to create your own kind of benchmark to a degree. So I'm going to set inflation as that benchmark, and I am then going to see the difference of leaving that money as cash, investing that in a fixed interest savings account, maybe a 3%, or actively investing into one of our MPS models here, just to kind of straight down the middle, medium term investment, so i.e. 10 years, at a level 3, so a kind of moderate investor, if you like. So nothing too cautious, nothing too adventurous. As other kind of instruments that I want to run on, I'm going to add a 0% FE interest rate, which is going to illustrate that cash, and we will be able to see how that 10,000 gets eroded in real time. I will also set in a savings account. I'll pick 3%, whatever you think would be fair over a 10-year return in terms of that fixed interest savings account. And the last thing that I'm going to add is just the consumer price index, which I'm going to make up as the basis of that comparison. So what we should see here, if I just generate this chart, is consumer price index as the benchmark, and then the real value of those other areas here. And as you can see, I'm sure this isn't a surprise to any of you guys, but again, a useful communication piece to show your clients, hopefully, is that the true value of that £10,000 cash has been eroded so massively by inflation, it has lost a hell of a lot of money. So that's down at about 7,200 now. So you've lost 2,800 in terms of real value if you were to leave your money as cash over a 10-year period. And similarly, even those people who might think that their money is safe in a fixed interest savings account, their money has still gone down in true returns as well. You can then see, even though our models took a massive hit over COVID and have kind of started to recover to a degree, obviously we've had other market turbulence since then, Russia, Ukraine, whatever it might be, you'd see that despite all of that market turbulence, it is still very beneficial to be invested in over a long term. And as you can imagine, this process gets even more kind of stark the longer you run that performance period for. So you can align it to your client goals, particularly younger clients who may be kind of not wanting access to that money for a 30-year period. It's a really powerful way of showing the value of a compounding interest over that period. Cool, so that's the first one. And within FE Analytics, again, I won't go through and show you guys too many charts and tables. It's worth having a play around yourself. But some of the other bits that I think are really powerful is you would be able to show the value of kind of investing over a longer period of time, right? So you could say that what would happen if you invested 100 grand in let's say the FTSE at 2020, you then decided to withdraw that money at a bad moment. So when markets are uncertain, you try to withdraw that money, and then a few years later, you try to put it back on. You could start modeling out that sort of thing to see kind of the impact that would have on those models. And there's loads of other kind of use cases of here alongside that more traditional use of you invested in portfolio A, what is portfolio B looking like, which I will go on to now. So that first part was all in the chart type, performance line chart and regular savings are the two things that I would mainly have a look at. In terms of using analytics to kind of demonstrate the value of your central investment proposition, I think the reports tab is a better place to do that in. This is where you start doing a bit more kind of client friendly reporting as well. And the one thing that I would like to go through today is the custom portfolio report builder. There are a number of other reports you could see in there that might be slightly better for your internal kind of research. But what the custom portfolio report builder allows you to do is to create a bespoke client report designed in kind of simple English, so my nan would be able to understand it with no financial experience, to create a kind of a story and that side-by-side comparison of this is what you're currently invested in. Maybe it's a Vanguard life strategy with kind of very minimal returns, but they think it's extremely safe, versus something that is more aligned to their attitude to risk as part of your central investment proposition, for instance. So what I'm going to do, again, on the input side, I'm just going to add in 2 portfolios here. I'm going to add in one of our cautious passive models, which again, the client might think minimal risk, kind of guaranteed returns to a degree. What would that look like? And I'm also going to throw in just, again, that same risk level 3 medium term model. So that is a direct side-by-side comparison. And this could be your clients invested in a Vanguard life strat passive versus what you're kind of actively trying to suggest that they move towards. So once you've got that on the left-hand side, we can move across to the output section. And the first thing I'm going to do with the custom portfolio report builder is to create a template. And this template is up to you guys how you want to kind of configure this. But the point is that it should be aligned around your client's goals and kind of what you think they would be interested in terms of seeing a report. So what this template allows you to do is to select options from the left-hand side and move it across to the right-hand side. So let's say, for instance, your client was interested in portfolio performance. You'd be able to click on that. A small snapshot would come up and you would get kind of an introduction at the top here, and then the actual side-by-side comparison after this. And every page works in a very similar way, i.e. small description and then a couple of reports. As this is a templated report, it is repeatable over and over again on all of your different clients. And it is one of the more popular features that people use to kind of demonstrate the value of their investment in a client meeting. A lot of the time, people just kind of use the medium scan, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. This is basically the upgraded version. And in this case, I'm going to do a portfolio performance report. I'm also going to throw in a portfolio composition, portfolio breakdown, diversification benefit, and let's do some, what else should we do? Let's do a risk and return over 3 years. But the point is, it's completely up to you what you would like to include in this, depending on your client's needs. And you can change around the order, and you could also save multiple templates. So this one, I'd say it's not the most basic report, but it's not obviously the most advanced, which might include all of these different points in here, including kid documents. So I'd probably call this a kind of a silver level template, somewhere between the two. Once that template is built up, it is then repeatable. So if you've got other people within your analytics group, they would also have access to all of these templates. So you could set this up at a head office level, and all of the power planners and admin would have access to this report. So I'm going to select this silver report here, silver template, and then all you have to do then is choose what you would want to action on. So if that template's already built up, it's literally just filling in these options here. So I'm going to action on the active list. I'm going to give it a report title of yearly review report. You can bespoke the portfolio name to make it a little bit more, kind of client focused, as opposed to just that mass market communication. So that first one might be a little bit more appropriate too. And I see that Brian asked a question earlier, so it could be Brian's portfolio. Add in the advisor's name. And then the crucial point is within this benchmark section here, I'm going to choose the passive investment. So what the whole report is essentially doing is comparing portfolio A, the old passive portfolio, to what I am proposing is the more appropriate portfolio B. So I'm now going to generate this report. And just while this is loading in the background as well, if you do have a play around with this report and decide that you do like to run it on different portfolios, you do have the option to configure this button here, just in the settings on the left-hand side, so that is a default portfolio report, as opposed to just the medium scan that it typically is. The medium scan is by far the most popular feature on FE Analytics, as it does give a nice snapshot overview, and it's been in the system for years. I personally don't think it's particularly client-facing, and I do think that the report that I'm going to show now is a more is a nicer way of presenting this information. So this report, Again, this will be white labeled with your own branding. It will have all of that information we put through, and then into the actual bare bones of the reports, as I kind of mentioned when I was selecting this page. Each page has a small introduction, and then some kind of performance comparisons in here as well. Risk and return, and then whatever the portfolio is choosing to show in there onto the breakdown. And then potentially maybe you PDF that first one, you've PDF the second one, you're then going to jump across to FE Cash Calc to kind of, one, bring that portfolio journey to life in a little bit more detail, and two, send this back to the client for review. That first part I mentioned there about bringing a portfolio to life is a new development on Cash Calc, and something that I think is very exciting in terms of actually providing a bit of a sounder methodology behind how you're picking those variable growth rates for a cash flow. But what we have recently launched is the ability to export all portfolios within your system to FE Cash Calc. What that would allow you to do is to create a template or a growth template for your client's actual investment, as opposed to just having to pick a generic 4% linear growth or the IA mixed benchmarks that those of you who use Cash Calc might be using currently. So again, that way of making it so much more relatable to your client, to kind of help demonstrate why they should be investing in this in the first place. And again, I'll bring that to life on Cash Calc in a bit more detail now. Only other point on analytics that I will signpost that I won't go through today is some of you may have seen the ability to export this to Advisor Asset. We have recently integrated and acquired a firm called Advisor Asset, and they have three main tools in here. The first is a whole of market platform due diligence tool, essentially as a way of kind of determining which platforms you would want to use. We also have a charge comparison. So in this example here, because I have decided that I'm going to be investing my client's money in a FE hybrid transact risk level 3 portfolio, I would then jump across to this tool, the charge comparison, in order to say which of the platforms, as on my kind of platform panel, is most appropriate for that client. And it's very quick, very linear process, and easy to create a kind of a 16-page doc that you can keep for due diligence purposes and assure that you have done all of those cost and charges comparisons that you would need to do, and need to demonstrate that you have taken the steps to do so to make sure you're compliant. And we do have other sessions on that. Glenn, so Advisor Asset is included with all FE Analytics accounts, so you don't need a trial on it as well. Again, I do think that we need to make a bit more noise about that, because a lot of people think it's a separate product. It is absolutely included within all of your FE Analytics accounts on there. And Glenn, if I've got time, I'll come back to your other question at the end as well. But yeah, Advisor Assets on there as well. We also do have a lot of training and guides, should you want to kind of explore how to get the most out of that system. But again, that's probably one for another day. What I'll do now is jump across to Cash Calc, and there are kind of two main points of Cash Calc that I think are kind of relevant as part of this journey, if you like. The first is the client portal and onboarding. And now this is where we think you can gain massive efficiencies really, and start freeing you up time to actually communicate with your clients and start speaking with your clients. So within that client portal, again, I won't go through it in too much detail today. I'll more so just show you what is available on it. You have the option to send across a digital fact find that would encompass kind of all of the information you would need in order to create a cash flow and to understand all of that client's objectives. You would also be able to send across documents, and this may well be kind of generic documents that you'd want to send out to all of your clients or have waiting on that portal for all of your clients, like a fee agreement, like a privacy policy, like a terms of business, or, as I've just kind of shown in analytics, a way of kind of reassuring your entire client bank that, yeah, we appreciate markets are bad. This is the value of staying invested over a long period of time versus coming out and going back in and that sort of thing. So the documents can be kind of bespoke at client level or sent out as mass communications after they've set up their portal. We also have a links, which just gives you ability to, much like documents, just send a link to a client. And again, that could be on a mass basis or specific to individual clients. The attitude to risk, including the capacity for loss and knowledge and experience, is very much part of that streamlined Nexus process. So your client would have the ability to fill in their attitude to risk questions, make sure that all capacity for loss and knowledge and experience questions have been answered. The advisor would then say, yep, I agree with the client, or they would challenge the client and have a conversation about it. and you can then export that through to FE Analytics to align with your central investment proposition and determine which the most appropriate portfolio for that client would be. So again, we have loads of other sessions like this that will go through this in a little bit more detail. And then the last bits on here is a kind of ethical questionnaire and an AML check. The ethical questionnaire really just a way of determining how important ethical matters might be to your clients by giving them a sort of green score, saying whether it actually is a priority to be invested in ethical practices, or is it their most important thing is to have a low cost and diversified solution. So it's just a way of kind of engaging in that conversation with the client. So for those of you who are not familiar with cash calc, whether you get the information in here from the client filling it in themselves on the fact find, which I think is ideal, or automatically pulling through from your back office system, which I've done in this example here, the information is then on the tool and you can push it through to the cash flow and to analytics to continue your advice journey. In this case, I'm using the Xplan integration. We've also got integrations with IntelliFlow and others. Meaning that the information that I've got on my client has automatically pulled through from Xplan. It's a fully two-way integration. So if you were to make any changes in cash calc, you could push that back to Xplan, and vice versa. If anything were to change in Xplan, you'd be able to pull that through to this info tab here as well. Once you've got the info here, you may choose to export this to FE Analytics to start doing that side-by-side portfolio research I was talking about, or you might choose to jump straight into the cash flow to start kind of demonstrating the value of your advice. So what I'll do here is I will push through all of this information and I'll export that portfolio out. And what we're going to say in this scenario is this current cash flow we've got here is based on all of the information the client has currently come before advice. So we've got a number of different inputs in here. We've got pensions, we've got investments, all of which are achieving a terrible return. I've set all of these to zero as a starting point. But what we would show is this is a current situation, and I've already built them up here. In that current situation, what would we do if there was a market crash? So this is starting to become a way of how you reassure that client if a bad market event happens, what would that look like? So in this stress testing option, all I did was create a carbon copy of our existing current situation. But I said, what happened if there was a market crash, i.e. a 2008 market crash at retirement age, and all of your savings pots are affected? So all of your pots that are actively invested are affected. And as you can see, for that year, you got a minus 34.9% return, which is what happened in that market crash. I'm sure I don't need to remind any of you guys. So you could say that, yeah, sure, on the face of it, it looks like your clients had a healthy cash flow in what they are coming to you with, but have they done any stress testing on that? If the answer is no, then this is a great visual to kind of say, yeah, maybe you don't have quite as much as you think, and we do need to rethink your investment strategy slightly. So what I've done in this post advice example is I have changed some of the investments to our actual portfolio that we selected within FE Analytics. So I exported this FEI Mosaic Risk Level 4 medium-term portfolio. I then have the ability to select that as a growth rate looking forward. So instead of, I'd appreciate this one was set to 0, that may be a 4% linear growth rate that people kind of predict on a kind of a passive life strat. You could say that this actual portfolio, based on the asset allocation, has a predicted growth rate of 7.1%, and you could see the difference that might have on the market after that stress testing has still been applied. And all I did was say that 2 of our DC pensions were invested in that portfolio, and straight away you start seeing the difference that may have on the cash flow. And that would be a fairly kind of, I would say, generic bit of stress testing that you could probably do on a lot of clients, just kind of market crash at retirement. But what you could start doing with cash calc is start building it up to tell a story that is much more relatable and bespoke to your client. So maybe as part of that onboarding process, the client said that within the objectives tab that they wanted to make sure they had at least 200 grand to leave to their children when they passed. You would start being able to model that into the system and say that we have stress tested it in such a way that you had that money. Maybe they want to have the ability to pay for their daughter's wedding. Maybe they are concerned that if one of them were to die early, would their family be secure? And there's loads of examples you could start using cash flow to kind of show if things do go wrong, how can you reassure your clients? And similarly, what the difference is between being invested in cash versus kind of actively investing in the market. most powerfully shown just by these kind of side by sides you could do here in the comparison. So stress test versus the kind of post advice piece. It's night and day, the difference between being actively invested versus leaving it as cash. I'll jump across to a couple more of these kind of pre-built client examples that I've got in that kind of really demonstrates this value. One such one being a kind of a way of recommending why protection may be a good idea for certain clients, and as a way of kind of generating that conversation piece. So in this example, this client, Tony and Kelly, are still in accumulation. They are both still working and they have got an extremely healthy cash flow. Even if you were to stress test on this and say that their pots were to have a massive dip at retirement, or the markets were bad for a few years, as you can imagine, they are ending up with over 1 million. They are probably still going to be fine. They're not going to run out of money, and they are able to fulfill all of their goals. However, in this example, Tony, as part of that onboarding process and through the prompts within the fact find, said that one of his concerns is that his family does have a history of critical illness. And as we could see from this money in, money out, at least at the start of things, this family is very reliant on Tony's income to meet their expenses, as you could see here. His income nearly matches their whole total expenses, and it is only his wife has to just top them up. So he would say, what would happen if I did have to stop working, not at retirement age, i.e. 67 in this case, but I had to stop in the next few years? What impact would that have on my family and on their cash flow? So what you can model in this scenario is a critical illness event. And how you would go about doing this is to build an event on the timeline called critical illness. You would then be able to add in an change to the income. So Tony's income, rather than stopping at retirement age, is now due to stop at the event of critical illness. And you could see the impact that has on the cash flow is pretty catastrophic, and the family would run out of money much earlier than expected, and they would essentially be in a lot of bother. So if this was a concern of your client, again, you would make this relevant to your client's actual objectives and make it much more of a lifestyle planning piece. Maybe you would want to recommend that this client in particular takes out some premium protection to give them some peace of mind. So all you would do in this case is make a carbon copy of that previous example. But what I'm going to do in this case is add an expense for premium protection of £150 a month. And then also what that would mean is that if that critical illness event did happen, they would get that payoff of 600k. And as you could see, that huge injection of capital within the cash flow would be paid to the client from an external source. And that would actually be enough in this case to make sure that the couple didn't run out of money until at least 86. Maybe that wouldn't be suitable and not enough for the client. They did want to make sure they'd have enough money for their kids, in which case that is where you guys as the advisors would start making other recommendations. Potentially you would say that maybe expenses need to be cut down. Maybe you would have to work an extra job, whatever it might be, whatever the advice that you would give your clients, drawdown strategies, anything like that. You would start being able to model this on cash cow to kind of reassure your client that it is possible. It just may need some changes on there. Once you have produced a report like this, you can then create that as a report. So same way we made that kind of custom portfolio report builder on analytics, looking at the actual portfolio history and the benefit of kind of doing a side-by-side comparison with what they're currently invested in, going into performance, volatility, maybe costs and expenses. You could then put that into a forward-looking report to say, this is what you are currently invested in. All of your charges have been factored in as well as part of the inputs. We have got the predicted returns of that as well. And this is what I am suggesting for you to be invested in. So you'll be able to do a really nice side-by-side comparison report, put that in a report here. I'll tell you what, I'll do it in the actual client example that I used before. And you would be able to create the report, send this to the client back through that client portal alongside potentially that platform switching report and that analytics portfolio comparison report as well. You have the option to do this in a Word doc or PDF currently. Word document would obviously give you a little bit more kind of flexibility if you were wanting to remove sections. For now, I'm just going to put this in a PDF. And similarly to FE Analytics, you would have your own logo in the top here. you would always have created by the advisor, no matter if it is a power planner or admin member of staff using this. And then the report is designed so that my kind of nan would be able to understand it. So it's all designed to be simple English, detailed breakdown of what the cash flow is showing, which is kind of almost the most important thing a lot of the time. So you could just say that you have this amount of savings at retirement age, but even at age 100, you're predicted to still have more than enough money. And then we go on to the actual kind of inputs that we have put in, hopefully pulling through from either your back office system or from what the client themselves have inputted. So hopefully you as the advisors haven't had to spend any time inputting this data. And then the actual money in, money out, savings over time, and some of the taxes that have been calculated as part of that gross cash flow before we jump into the actual yearly breakdown. And then the second scenario coming through in just the same way as a stress testing option. Maybe you'd save this to your computer then, download it, save it, stored on your computer, and you could then come across to the document exchange with the client and just send that document by selecting it from your PC and sending those bespoke documents over to your client for them to see as part of your kind of yearly review process. And what a lot of advisors who are kind of very engaged with our digital process would do is they would send across a completed fact find to the client ahead of a yearly review meeting. They would say, I appreciate I've got most of your hard facts, but what I'd be really interested in understanding is what are your current kind of objectives? What are your concerns? Is there anything that's keeping you up at night? The client would be able to put that information in, send it across to the advisor, and the advisor would then be able to use our tools to start being able to reassure that client. Whether it is just a case of running out of money, whether it is they are very concerned about what's going on in Russia, Ukraine, how are the markets reacting to that? Are they better off keeping their money as cash? Whatever that might look like for the specific client, you could use a combination of FE Analytics and CashCalc to build those reports, send them across to the client, potentially ahead of the meeting, and then your actual meeting can be going through those reports, making sure they understand and seeing if you need to make any changes. So really kind of powerful end-to-end journey, all designed to reassure your clients and make sure that you are aligned to their goals. So all of this has been kind of fairly individual client specific. I did mention at the start, we also have the ability to send kind of mass communications and things through the client portal. So every single one of your clients will have their own page within CashCalc. As you could see through mine, I have set a number of kind of filters, and you would be able to add these on as well should you want to. So if you want to kind of add in specific things, i.e. at a review date, you wanted to make sure that you'd always send a client some latest market comms that maybe your team puts together on a monthly basis, or one of the MPS providers that you use make those comms for clients to read. You'd be able to add in tags or filters on each of these clients, and then you'd be able to mass communicate with all the clients that would be interested accordingly. So a really powerful way of not only offering that kind of bespoke advice, but also sending across some market commentary or reassurances to your clients ahead of time, if you do find that a lot of clients are concerned about the same sort of thing. So I would add in a tag here and say that you'd call this maybe, I don't know, you'd put in something like a kind of an interested client maybe, and then whenever there is something turbulent going on in the market, you would have a prompt that you would want to create a small document, and you'd want to send that out to all of those clients en masse, just kind of reassuring them and suggesting any actions that they may want to take should they want to get in touch with you or your team. So loads of flexibility about that mass communication piece that you could all configure within the settings tab and the documents and things like that should you want to send out mass communications. Cool. So I'll kind of leave things for there, conscious not to show you guys kind of too many different charts and reports and things. I would say I'm assuming if most of you are on this call, you are probably familiar with potentially both parts of our tech or all three parts of our tech, if not just one or the other. More than happy to get you set up with kind of trials or anything should you want to. Just reach out to our team. Crucial point, Brian, just to kind of reiterate that as well, Advisor Asset is available for all of those within FE Analytics. And the systems are all now fully integrated. So in theory, if your client is inputting that information in our client portal, that would be able to flow through to the back office system for storage, but also into analytics for this research, into Advisor Asset for that platform comparison, and then back the other way to ensure that you do have all of that information in one place. I will now pause and see if we have any other questions before just leaving this in here as well. Should you want to kind of sign up to any of our other sessions, we do run these every week. We also have other kind of live training available if you want more of a training session rather than a show and tell. On Cash Calc, we have live sessions going through the onboarding and cash flow twice a week that you could book onto yourself using the book a demo. On analytics, we have loads of resources available on our training and guides section on here. So whether you prefer to do kind of more formalized CPD training in more of a classroom setting where you can become kind of certified, you can go through that route. Or if you prefer to do kind of work your way through videos and guides, you can do that as well. And alternatively, we do have a very wide team here, from trainers to account managers, business development managers. Every single one of you will have a point of contact. Please do feel free just to reach out to one of our team, and they will be more than happy to go through bespoke sessions with you to make sure that our tech is aligned to what you are trying to achieve. And yeah, for now, let me go through and see if there are any questions. So Brian, I can see a number of your questions there. Some of them I'm not sure which bit exactly you're referring to, if it can do it at that certain time. So what I think would make the most sense is potentially I'll just get one of our team to reach out and maybe jump in, get a quick kind of half an hour call to go through all of those bits in a bit more detail. I think that would make sense if that's okay with you. We'll make a note to get someone to reach out. And yeah, Glenn, similarly, can you elaborate what exactly you are wanting to show in that case, of the max loss period to recover over a period of time? And again, if not, it might be worth just jumping on a phone call with someone within our team who can go through that with you. Cool. I don't see any other questions coming in. So yeah, thank you all very much for your time. I'll make sure that our team follows up with. We've got some other kind of a slightly more kind of client-facing slides that might be useful as well, just to kind of go through a little bit more about what we are trying to do with our Nexus offering and how all of our tech is designed to help in these conversations. And as mentioned, we do have a very wide team here, so if you do have any questions, please do just reach out to us. Thank you very much, and hopefully see you on the next one soon. Bye bye.